each other. We need each other to make sense of anything in this life. This is one of many reasons we gather together and why we are so glad to welcome each and all of you this morning, including a number of our young people. We are delighted to be worshiping together in this all ages service.
Especially those of you who are new. If you're visiting or just beginning to find your way, then we offer you a special welcome. We know it can sometimes be a little intimidating to visit a church, and we want to do whatever we can to help you feel at ease right from the beginning. There will be helpful folks around after the service who would love to answer any questions and help you begin to find places of connection.
Yes, and the goodness does not end with the service today. If you are joining us online today, hello. Hello, friends joining us on the hour, where we'll have coffee and snacks and wonderful discussion on the patio and some lawn games too.
So on this 4th of July weekend, do we have to celebrate that this year? On this 4th of July weekend, when I know you are glad for the rest, for the respite, for the celebration, know that we are needful of times and places to celebrate. And I know also that it is hard in this moment. It is hard to even know how to be with this season, with our country and its legacies and its unfulfilled promises. It may even be hard to know how to be with our families, with ourselves. And yet here we are. As I mentioned, I'm so glad to be back with you. And I want to thank you also as a community for your care for a very dear friend of mine. Leah Aylward was a childhood friend. We grew up together, and I am very much holding her along with you in this space this morning with my gratitude. I will tell you also, I believe some things, and those are very much with us in this space as well. I'm an educator in addition to being a minister. I believe that we teach ourselves and that we act our way into new ways of thinking when we do worship together in partnership and when we do worship together well. I believe that all worship is already, always an intergenerational activity, and that it has been for as long as humans have been ritualizing worshiping. And so some encouragements this morning to all of us: do what your body needs in these moments. This is an experiential service. It's rooted in meeting your feelings and your body where they are right now. We think we'll probably run to about 10 minutes past the hour, and we timed things that way. We trust you to do what you need to do. And in that spirit, I offer a grounding ritual. This comes to us from the work of religious educator Mark Hicks at Meadville Lombard. It's called I Am Here Now. I invite you to find your hands, either hand, move us more. It can help us to process trauma as well as to access our full creativity. So we're going to say this with me: I am here now. So we're going to say that a few more times, each time touching a finger. And I invite you to just put emphasis on different words and really feel the truth of it. Let this meet you where you need it to. I am here now. I am here now. I am here now. Indeed, it is so. Come, let us worship together. In my church, in a ritual that we inherited from a church closer to you, still not that close, but very far away from Massachusetts, we say together, we light this chalice for love, hope, and peace. So I invite you to join with the congregations of Lawrence, Kansas, and Fairhaven, Massachusetts, and this morning say these words together. We light this chalice for love, hope, and peace. Please join now in affirming the shared covenants of faith. With one voice, we affirm, love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. Let us begin this service as we rise in body or spirit and open our hymnals, the blue softcover hymnal to number 1064, Blue Boat Home. We are going to be singing along to the videos that this church created during COVID, videos that are a resource. I can testify to many congregations across the country. We are delighted to reconnect with them. And I invite you to just engage energy this morning. So go ahead and rise and let's join in singing.
Below me, I feel no motion, standing on these mountains and plains, far away from the rolling ocean. Still my dry heart can say, I've been sailing all my life now, never harbored or port have I known. My universe is the ocean I travel, and the earth is my blue home. Sun, my sail, and moon, my rudder, as I glide the starry sea, leaning over the edge in wonder, casting questions into the deep, drifting here with my ship's companions, all we kindred pilgrim souls, making our way by the lights of the heavens in a beautiful blue boat home. I give thanks to the waves upholding me, and the great winds urging me on. Read the infinite sea before me, sing the sky my sailor song. I was born upon the fathoms, never harbor or port have I known. My universe is the ocean I travel, and the earth is my blue boat home.
What a blessing to be able to see these landscapes. I appreciate that. Are we doing this as a stay in your seats?
Yes.
Okay, great. So the invitation to all of you, so often we call these things time for all ages, and we mean that as code for like time for only some people. I know that Lauren and I both really emphatically mean time for all ages.
Absolutely.
And we invite you to use your bodies in a way that is respectful of your neighbor and careful of yourself, but use your bodies to participate with us in this story. It is a story about claiming possibility and also running from things that scare us. So here we go. We're calling this delicious. It is a Zen koan. It comes to us from the Buddhist tradition. Once upon a time, a man was walking through the forest and he saw a tiger. What would you look like if you saw a tiger on your casual stroll through the forest? Yeah, he saw a tiger. It was peering out from under the underbrush. And what do you think the man did? And then what did he do? Yeah, right, he's running. He's turning to run and he hears the tiger spring from the ground to give chase.
Barely ahead of the tiger, running for his life, our hero came to the edge of a steep cliff. Clinging on to a strong vine, the man climbed over the cliff edge just as the tiger was about to pounce.
Hanging over the side of the cliff with the hungry tiger pacing up above him, the man looked down and was dismayed. He was dismayed. He was dismayed to see another tiger. Friends, dismay means kind of slight unhappiness. I think the man was probably horrified to see another tiger. The tiger stalking the ravine far below, and just then, a tiny mouse darted out from a crack in the cliff above him. Is this mouse coming to help him? The mouse begins to gnaw at the vine that the man is holding onto.
At that precise moment, the man noticed a patch of wild strawberries growing from a clump of earth near where he dangled. Reaching out, he plucked one. It was plump, perfectly ripe, and warmed by the sunshine. Can you imagine what that would feel like? Can you smell it?
He popped that strawberry into his mouth. It was delicious. The end.
Well, love is the spirit of this church. I wonder what that man dangling there felt, eating that delicious strawberry, if he felt that love. In the spirit of that love, we walk with one another through our joys and our sorrows, and especially in the ways these things tend to arrive all at once in the tangled blessing we call life.
Today, we celebrate the life and grieve the loss of beloved longtime church member Jean Kennedy. A Foothills member since 1976, Jean died peacefully in the presence of her family on June 23rd at the age of 98. Our healing wishes are with Sarah Edwards as she recovers from surgery.
Beyond these things we've named aloud this morning, let's honor those joys and sorrows that remain unspoken, but live in the silence of our hearts. The stories of heartache or hope, beauty and loss. May all of these feel the compassion embodied here in our community. For all those places that need forgiveness, may forgiveness be given and received. For the grief we carry, may we find healing and hope. for the division in our nation, in our families, in our lives, for violence of all kinds, for fear which keeps us isolated and reactive, for the ways we fail each other and ourselves. May we be restored to a new wholeness and trust, held by a unifying ultimate love. And for the many blessings of our lives, the beauty we create and receive in the everyday, may our hearts be overcome with gratitude. Let us feel the ways we are all connected in this one life, ultimately indivisible in the spirit and in the web of life. Let it be a reminder to us all of our promise to practice compassion and understanding and service, and to walk together. In this moment, I would like to particularly invite the children present here today, but anyone who feels so inclined to help us bring a story to life this morning. You may have noticed some unusual things down front today. I invite any children here with us today to come forward and find a piece of tree, and you can hold it and find a seed right here. We have a nest, we have a tree. I'm gonna have to hold all of this if nobody helps, so we're gonna see how much I can get. Jordan can get some too. There's branches here. And when you have found the piece that's right for you, you can find a seat or stand, however you like, over here near our chalice. Yeah, I'm gonna get a couple of these. And my invitation to you, hey Ben, would you like one of these? Yeah. Okay, I'll have this one. As always, we're gonna work to keep each other safe, keep our church safe. But as we share this story with you, if you hear something mentioned that calls to you, or you feel like you and your tree parts are representing that piece of the story, you're welcome to hold it up higher, bring our attention to it.
So we have a reading today from W.S. Merwin, Unchopping a Tree. Start with the leaves, the small twigs, and the nests that have been shaken, ripped, or broken off by the fall. These must be gathered and attached once again to their respective places.
It is not arduous work unless major limbs have been smashed or mutilated.
If the fall was carefully and correctly planned, the chances of anything of the kind happening will have been reduced.
Again, much depends upon the size, age, shape, and species of the tree. Still, you will be lucky if you can get through this stage without having to use machinery.
Even in the best of circumstances, it is a labor that will make you wish often that you had won the favor of the universe of the ants, the empire of the mice, or at least a local tribe of squirrels, and could enlist their labors and their talents.
But no, they leave you to it.
They have learned with time, this is humans' work.
It goes without saying that if the tree was hollow in whole or in part, and contained old nests of bird or mammal or insect, or hordes of nuts or such structures as wasps or bees built for their survival, the contents will have to be repaired where necessary and reassembled insofar as possible in their original order, including the shells of nuts already opened.
With spiders' webs, you must simply do the best you can. We do not have the spider's weaving equipment, nor any substitute for the leaf's living bond with its point of attachment and nourishment.
It is even harder to simulate the latter when the leaves have once become dry, as they are bound to do, for this is not the labor of the moment.
It hardly needs saying that this is the time for repairing any neighboring trees or bushes or other growth that might have been damaged by the fall.
Same rules apply. Where neighboring trees were of the same species, it is difficult not to waste time conveying a detached leaf back to the wrong tree.
Practice, put your hope in that. At last, the time comes for the erecting of the trunk. By now, it will scarcely be necessary to remind you of the delicacy of this huge skeleton.
Every motion of the tackle, every slightly upward heave of the trunk, the branches, their elaborately reassembled panoply of leaves, now dead, will draw from you an involuntary gasp.
You will watch for a leaf or a twig to be snapped off yet again. You will listen to the nuts to shift in the hollow limb, and you will hear whether they are indeed falling into place or are spilling in disorder.
In which case, or in the event of anything else of the kind,
Operations will have to cease while you correct the matter.
The raising itself is no small enterprise. From the moment when the chains tighten around the old bandages until pole's hand vertical above the stump, splinter above splinter.
When all is ready, the splintered trunk is lowered onto the splinters of the stump. This, one might say, is only the skeleton of the resurrection.
Now the chips must be gathered and the sawdust and returned to their former positions.
it is as well, where possible, to shelter the materials from the elements while working. Weathering makes it harder to identify the smaller fragments. Bark sawdust, in particular, the earth lays claim to very quickly.
You must find your own way of coping with these problems.
There is a certain beauty you will notice at moments in the patterns of the chips as they are fitted back into place.
You will wonder to what extent it should be described as natural, to what extent man-made. It will lead you on to speculations about the parentage of beauty itself, to which you will return.
The adhesive for the bark is transparent and runs into the fibers on either side, partially dissolving them into each other.
It does not set the sap flowing again, but it does pay a kind of tribute to the preoccupations of the ancient thoroughfares.
You could not roll an egg over the joints, but some of the mine shafts would still be passable, no doubt, for the first exploring insect who raises its head in the light, echoless passages.
The day comes when it is all restored, even to the moss now dead, over the wound.
You will sleep badly, thinking of the removal of the scaffolding that must begin the next morning.
How you will hope for the sun and a still day.
The removing of the scaffolding or tackle is not as dangerous, perhaps, to the surrounding as its installation, but it presents problems.
The sky begins to look naked as the chains and struts, one by one, vacate their positions.
Finally, the moment arrives when the last sustaining piece is removed and the tree stands again on its own.
It is as though its weight for a moment stood on your heart.
You listen for a thud of settlement, a warning creak deep in the intricate joinery.
You cannot believe it will hold. How like something dreamed it is, standing there all by itself.
How long will it stand there now?
The first breeze that touches its dead leaves all seems to flow into your mouth.
You are afraid the motion of the clouds will be enough to push it over.
What more can you do?
What more can you do?
There is nothing more you can do.
There are more waiting. Everything is going to have to be put back.
And we can see, we can put our tree back. We put it back together? Not quite. Not quite. You were very gentle. Thank you, helpers. You may even get a sticky sock reminder to carry with you.
Thank you, helpers, in that unchopping a tree activity. The spoiler, of course, there is no unchopping. A few years ago, I had a really challenging conversation over brunch with one of my seminary classmates. Joanna was preparing to preach her very first Earth Day sermon, and she found that she was struggling to wrestle her own sense of dread and despair. Joanna was at that moment when we talked, planning to tell her people, we have screwed it up, folks. The truth is, it is already too late. It is too late to turn back the tide, literally. It is too late to stop the changes. It might even be too late for humanity. Joanna's passion was clear, and right there, so was her pain. And as I listened and considered, I found myself switching from pain of my own, born of fear and love and empathy, to something more comfortable, something more familiar. I found myself beginning to feel first a sense of helplessness. Have you felt this feeling? And then, unable to free myself from it, I began to feel nothing. I began to feel numb. This in a 10-minute conversation, and as I considered it in an out-of-body sort of way, I began to wonder, what does a message like this feel like for those listening to it? We are cautioned as preachers to remember always that there is someone out there in the pews who this morning decided to give church, maybe this church, one more chance. And we are cautioned to remember also that there may every Sunday be someone else who is here because they are giving life one more chance. And so I asked aloud, where is the hope here? What is the pastoral holding side of a message of profound despair? Joanna shook her head, angry now at me also. Months of worry and frustration clear on her face, in her shoulders. False optimism is what keeps us from acting, she snapped. I'm not gonna lie to them. There is no hope here. I considered again the numbness by now making its way toward my heart. And we agreed to disagree, eating our eggs in sadness and silence. I'm going to pause in this inopportune moment of dialogue with my friends and invite us to do something that I think might help us here. And by help us, I mean me and my friends, me and my colleagues, those of us who wrestle with how to message these things week in and week out. But I also mean all of us, right? Those of us who are living in this time and in these places in bodies that we're born to this moment. We don't have any other time. There was no other era. I am not personally aware of having been given a choice. We were born to this moment. And we are part of a faith that says that our living, our lives, our hoping, our hands and our hearts, that those matter. So if those things are together true, then this moment matters. And our living in it matters. And yet wave at me if you have felt discouraged to very discouraged at some point in the last couple of weeks. Right? Yeah. We encounter these moments, and an interesting thing, and I don't even know how to take this, an interesting thing is that, like a lot of my road sermons, this particular liturgy was written years ago, almost 10 years ago at this point, and as I looked through it, there were things I was referencing where I was saying things like that. Have you felt very stressed? And people are like, yes. It's helpful, I think, for us to be aware that we keep having these moments of, oh my gosh, but we were having them 10 years ago also, which is part of why we are so tired, not just individually, but together. It is part of why we are so tired together. And so, somatic practice, I want us to learn together a couple of tools. So you have I am here now. The great thing about that is you can do it anywhere, including underneath the conference table. No one will see you. You can use it to ground yourself. Here is one that you might do in more private spaces, but you know, in any UU church, you can absolutely practice this. I invite you to use your hands, and however it is that your hands work, I invite you to embrace yourself. Give yourself a hug or a pat or a touch. What is it that you do to comfort yourself with your body? And if it isn't with your hands, what do you do to comfort yourself with your body? Okay, and then I invite you again to just breathe. You're welcome to close your eyes if that is comfortable. I invite you to take comfortable breaths, which might be deep breaths, or it might just be the kind of breathing that feels good to your lungs. I invite you to notice what it is to gather together. And I invite you to notice the strength that you feel in your body at this moment. I invite you to notice the fact of your breathing. I invite you to attend to and maybe send a message of thanks to the continuing of your heartbeat. You are alive in this moment. And I invite you to be with your body a bit tighter, whether that means hugging a bit tighter or tensing a bit tighter, and breathe. And as you breathe, let surface something that is scaring you. Just let it come, the thing that maybe you were trying to push down, let it rise up, and say to yourself in your mind the name of that thing or the sentence it is trying to tell you. Continue to hold your body. The sentence or thing that it is trying to tell you, I invite you to hear that sentence, that name of the thing, and exhale. And we're going to do this 3 times. Breathe in, let that thing say its sentence to you, and then exhale, maybe kind of hard. And then again, breathe in, let that fear speak to you. Exhale kind of hard. One more time, breathe in. What is that thing trying to tell you? Exhale kind of hard. All right, shake it out if that's the way that your body works. Loosen if that's the way that your body works. And then I invite you to once more, we're going to go through this again, but this is a different message. Find your hug, find yourself. And you can co-regulate with other people. That's actually part of what we do in worship. But I want you to understand that when you are at your most alone, you can still be a comfort in your body to yourself. We just said a scary thing. What do you feel surfacing? Think again of that thing. What do you feel surfacing that you know is also true? I call this I know this much is true, probably because I'm a child of the 80s. But what is that thing is scary and I know this much is true. So I invite you to let that surface. It could just be a little hint of a thing, or it can be a thing that you know for sure. Let yourself think it, and then we're gonna exhale again. We're gonna do this 3 times. Think the thing, what do you know is true? Breathe out. And again, what do you know is true? Breathe out. And one more time, what do you know is true? Breathe out. Relax. Move your arms. My friend Jamie learned at age 33 that she was dying. She fought and conquered breast cancer twice in 3 years, and it took a toll. Hospitalizations, a partial and then a radical mastectomy, drugs, fatigue, hair loss. Finally, though, it seemed like things were okay. Jamie was finally free to enjoy her beautiful 3-year-old daughter. Addie had been a nursing infant when the cancer was first discovered. Except that this period of okay turned out, as all things are, to be temporary. It was a brief, beautiful strawberry in a short life of them. Jamie's cancer returned for a 3rd round. This time it was metastatic. There was shock and horror and grief aplenty. And eventually, there came to be something else. For her, and indeed for all of us who knew her, and this is a true witness, there came hope grounded in realism, the kind that knows that the full stop is coming. And since we know that the stop is coming, we also know that it is not yet here. Jamie's motto became "Make it quality." She chose to live her days like a bowl of ripe strawberries once shared with family and friends. I lived those same days in a haze, not having yet learned this lesson, but Jamie tasted and touched and felt in each moment that was allowed to her. And she was able to do this because she chose to get real. She was real about her pain, and she looked death right in the eye and being honest about the immutable reality of it. It's oddly what allowed Jamie to claim and engage with the hours of her life. And then she died. Jamie's story did not involve a miracle, at least not the kind that beats death. But I'll tell you this, I carry Jamie and her wisdom around with me everywhere I go. She was a theologian for our times. Get real. Take what you have and make this moment quality. And I think that this right now, for so many of us, maybe for all of us, this is like that. Inhabiting a human body and living a life of feeling and awareness and gratitude and noticing beauty at this moment on this earth, it is like that. And so I wonder, have you experienced the numbness yourself? Has it stopped you from acting when you needed to in hopes of not feeling what you dreaded to? An increasing number of progressive religious leaders argue that what we need in this moment of environmental uncertainty and potential catastrophe is to go more deeply to our grief, to be there with it, to be more real with it, and then to move through it. Knowing that, like all grief, the losses will always be part of us. But believing also that in naming them, we move to stake a claim on life and hope, a living hope, the kind that grows with us and guides us in the next chapter. And as long as our hearts continue to beat, as long as we continue to breathe in institutional and community life, as long as we continue to gather and to make a we, there is indeed a future. But it starts with confronting the reality of the present. It starts with naming the grief and in some ways the horror of what we are up against. It starts with waking up for real, and that takes courage. We can't do it alone. We need companions in the walking. We need companions in the moving forward. We need grief chaplains for the world. Author Emily St. John Mandel, about a decade ago, imagined the end of modern life. Her book was called Station 11. At this point, you've probably heard of it. There is a theme running deeply through that work. In the ruins of the cities and towns we built, which in the author's imagination are in the process of being reclaimed by the natural world. Through that haunted landscape, there travels a caravan of artists. They are actors and musicians. They move from encampment to encampment, performing works that are hundreds of years old, Shakespeare and Mozart. They use decrepit instruments, they're dressed in fraying costumes, and they do this on the basis of a powerful theological argument, one that comes to us from Star Trek Voyager. True story. The line, you may know it, because survival is not enough. Think about that. Think about the ways that we know this at a deep level, the ways in which Unitarian Universalism lifts up this truth. We laugh together because survival alone is not enough. We celebrate and dance, make art, claim identity and sexuality and possibility in a variety of magical ways because survival is not enough. We worship together because survival is not enough. And you know what else? Despair is not enough either. Not if we are going to reach for that berry, and certainly not if we are going to try to make our way back up the side of that cliff. not if we are going to fight our tigers, not if we are going to push back against what is making a claim against love. And I don't know if we are going to fight back with everything that we have. I don't know even if that's a valid use of our days, of our purpose, when there is also so much beauty, but I do know that despair alone will not get us there. We don't know how to unchop a tree, not really. The last summer before COVID, our family made a big trip from Massachusetts. We took our kids to Yellowstone for the first time. And it was really scary driving in because there had been a fire just a couple of years before and so many things looked dead. We could see this ghost forest from miles away as we drove toward it. It was a haunted landscape. And yet, when we came around the corner in our car that summer in Yellowstone and we actually encountered the dead forest, the thing that we had been afraid of, it looked different up close. There were baby trees, hundreds of them, thousands of them. They were not visible from afar, but they were coming. They were coming in the sunlight around what has died and gone. They were coming to be the new forest. I looked at those trees and I cried. I cried for the trees that have been. I cried for the losses that we have known, and I cried for the heart-splitting pain and the courageous joy that hope demands of us. Those tiny trees remind me of all the ways that our children rise up to point at what will be. That our children are brave enough to acknowledge what is gone, even where sometimes we fear to do so. Joanna, my seminary friend, and I kept talking. She's continuing, as we all are, to work through her grief and to make meaning of it. But she shared something about a year later, something that helped her. It came from a mentor in Tennessee on a rural farm, one of her companions in the journey. Mr. Barkley is part-time a teacher and part-time a farmer, and he told Joanna a story of a classroom interaction with a 9-year-old that changed him forever. Mr. Barkley was explaining to a class about the decline in species. He was naming how many are going extinct. He was lifting up the scale of what has been lost. And a child raised his hand in the middle of Barkley's halting apology and said, "So what are you going to do about it?" And Mr. Barkley stopped in his tracks, and then he took a deep breath, fighting tears, and he said, confessionally, in the moment he'd been waiting for, apologizing to a generation, apologizing to this child's peers, and in spirit to every child whose hopes and dreams are at stake in our adult choices. Trying not to cry, he said, "That's just it. There's nothing we can do. We didn't know. I'm sorry, we didn't know." The child didn't cry or even look surprised. Instead, he stared so clearly back at Mr. Smith and simply clarified his question. "Yes, but now that you know, what are you going to do? What if we make that our question?" The berries are there. What happens if we give ourselves some climbing gear? It's true, the odds are not ever in our favor. The stakes are very high. Everything is going to have to be put back. Amen.
Our congregation invites each of us to respond to the gift of life through the sharing of our resources. As we have been blessed, we are called to be a blessing. Here at Foothills, we share in a practice of generosity by giving away half of our offering plate every Sunday to a community partner who shares our values. This month, our designated Share the Plate recipient is Sanctuary Everywhere. As immigration policies shift underneath our feet, asylum seekers fleeing violence in their home countries continue to arrive in northern Colorado, hoping to find freedom and community. Sanctuary Everywhere companions asylum seekers by co-creating villages to offer support and resources as they enter the community. This is done in partnerships with immigrant-led community organizations in Fort Collins. This ministry is personal, impactful, and life-changing for all involved. Everything you place in the basket or donate by texting SHARE to the number on the screen will be shared equally with Sanctuary Everywhere and to support our mission to unleash courageous love in our lives and all across northern Colorado and beyond. We will now gratefully receive your generous offering.
And while we do, if you'd like to sing along, to Peace Like a River, I'll call out the lyrics right as I begin. Or you can sit there and listen, that works too. Peace like a river. I've got peace like a river, I've got peace like a river, I've got peace like a river in my soul. I've got peace like a river, I've got peace like a river, I've got peace like a river in my soul. Okay, we've got joy like a fountain, and I like the harmonies out there, thanks. I've got joy like a fountain, I've got joy like a fountain, I've got joy like a fountain in my soul. I've got joy like a fountain, I've got joy like a fountain, I've got joy like a fountain in my soul. You got love like an ocean. I've got love like an ocean, I've got love like an ocean, I've got love like an ocean in my soul. I've got love like an ocean, I've got love like an ocean, I've got love like an ocean in my soul. One more time, peace like a river. I've got peace like a river, I've got peace like a river, I've got peace like a river in my soul. I've got peace like a river, I've got peace like a river, I've got peace like a river in my soul.
In our world today, too often, instead of feeling all of the goodness of our lives, the blessings, we get in the habit of only seeing what we don't have, or how we're not good enough, or the world isn't good enough. Which is why we always end our services here at Foothills focusing on gratefulness, that is, gratefulness. Often in our fast world, we struggle most of all with stopping. And so that's our invitation here in this moment, to pause and to look, to experience the gifts of life that are everywhere. So for these few moments, let us feel the joy and gratitude for all the gifts we share. Let this gratitude fill us up. And let the joy of being together well up in our hearts. Just feel that. Take it all in. Breathe into this gratitude. Feel it welling up, and then feel coming into your heart for something or someone in your life, big or small, that gratitude. Just let it fill you up. And finally, let in all the gratitude for the beauty of this life, this moment, just as it is. Let it overflow. Let us be filled with that joy, knowing that all we need is right here. Let that feeling fill you up so much that I know you just can't help but to rise up as we sing our closing song, Standing Like a Tree.
So this is a new song to me. We'll watch. We'll listen for the first time through as it's sung in the video, and then we'll repeat 4 more times after that. So let yourselves listen for the first round and then join in as you will for the other rounds following.
Standing like a tree with my roots stuck down, my branches are wide and open. Come down the rain, come down the sun, come down the fruit till my heart is open. Standing like a tree with my roots stuck down, my branches wide.
Closing words from a vision from Wendell Berry. If we will have the wisdom to survive, then a long time from now, the river will run clear, as we will never know it. The abundance of this place, the songs of its people and its birds will be health and wisdom and indwelling light. This is no paradisal dream. Its hardship is its possibility. Take courage, friends. We are in the struggle together. May peace be with you. Amen.
I did too. I heard you had a lot. I think she did too. Oh. What?
Hello, everyone on Zoom. Can you hear me? This is Jen. Good morning. I'm Marla. It's a Thanksgiving potluck together for your thing. We certainly do. It's all good. Okay, I need to unmute everybody, I think. All right, you all can now unmute yourselves. And I'm sorry, my camera's not working, but this is Jen Powell. And Jordinn is joining us in just a moment. It's good to see everybody. Thank you for bearing with our tech today. We had a lot of moving parts.
There we go.
Is the sound better now, Sarah?
Getting there.
Okay. Yay, and thank you to Sarah Edwards as our Zoom tech this morning. We threw a lot at her this morning, the normal Zoom tech jobs, slides, videos. Okay, and Linda Cathera was our person simulcasting for the first time with Doug in the AV booth. So it was a heavy tech day. And here's Jordinn. Reverend Jordinn is here. Yay! I am going to spotlight you. Actually, but I also want everybody to see everybody. So let's do that.
Gallery view. There we go.
On a second.
Good morning, Jordinn. Thank you.
Gallery. There we go.
Okay.
Okay, Jordinn, why don't you unmute yourself? There you go.
Okay.
Mhm.
So I'm going to welcome everybody who's here. We've got Reverend Jordinn Nelson Long online. We've got also Sue Bloomfield. Where are you?
I'm here.
There you are, right in front of me. And Sue is here to lead us in the breakout questions, but I thought first it would be an opportunity for everybody to meet you, Jordinn, and if anybody had any questions about the service and or any questions for Reverend Jordinn or anything you want to discuss. And then after that, we're going to whisk Reverend Jordinn out to the in-person people on the patio, and you guys can carry on with breakout questions with Sue.
All right, awesome. Thanks, Jen. And thanks for being here, everyone. It's a delight to be back with you in this new virtual way. And just happy to connect with you in whatever way would feel meaningful.
Well, I appreciated your story about your friend who was dying of cancer at such a young age. Because it harked back to a friend I had who was dying. She was older, maybe in her mid 40s, but we were fellow soccer moms. And I just had, she was, after, of course, a year or two of serious medical issues, finally grew into an acceptance that she was dying. But she had a very deep faith. She was Catholic. But I had the hardest time understanding her peace. I just couldn't imagine being peaceful and accepting, especially when you're leaving, young kids behind. So it's still a mystery to me.
Yes. It's a thing that I don't find us to talk very much about. And by us, I think I just mean people in general, like what it is to have accompanied friends through final illnesses, and then they're gone. We talk about grief when they're gone from our lives, but not so much that journey that I think as you live longer becomes somewhat universal. Many of us, if not all, will have had somebody who received an adverse medical diagnosis and then died, and then we're left making sense of that entire process.
I read an interesting essay on Facebook yesterday, a woman in a similar situation, and she said, by the time you read this, I'll be gone. But she said, I'm really offended by the idea that people lost their battle with cancer. Like, everybody dies.
Yeah,
this is not a failure. This is just something that happens to everybody.
Eventually.
I took away, Jordinn, the wisdom of the friend, and also of your realization of like what that piece, sort of the glimmer of that piece, that it's one of those teachings that we all hear, but like it's no way that we can ever like get our heads around, that all of our suffering just comes from wishing things were not the way they are. And that's like constant all day long, like the little things, and of course the giant things of like, I don't want this to be happening. I don't want it to be happening. But it keeps happening. Stuff always is happening. And like, why, I don't know why I can cognitively get it, but it's very hard to feel it totally in my body. And I appreciate that message today and reminder.
I'm so glad you said that, all of it. And if there were a thing that I could get all of us, Unitarian Universalists, people of progressive faith, y'all here at Foothills, my own congregation, my family, if I could get us to do, it would be to lean toward that sense of, you know, our suffering does come from not being able to embrace this moment for the gift and sometimes prickly pain that it is. I saw something just yesterday where a friend of mine, who is somebody that I think of as pretty spiritually mature and grounded, posted this like ticker about the year 2022, because I guess we are halfway through. And then he was posting this lament, like, oh my gosh, 50% more of the year 2022. And I'm not sure what we've observed in the past few years that leads us to think that if we simply change